Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our session, Changing Culture Through Mentoring, with our mentoring partners moving ahead. I'm Angela Owen, for those who don't know me, and I founded Women in Defence UK. This month sees the second cohort of mentors and mentees forming up to start their mentoring journey. A key difference between our programme and the many excellent mentoring programmes available is that ours matches mentees, women only, from the defence public sector with mentors, any gender, from the defence private sector, and vice versa. So it brings a very different viewpoint or perspective against a background of sector knowledge. One of the hardest things for me when I left the army and joined the private sector was understanding how the private sector thought, and importantly, why they thought that way. This programme seeks to leverage the real diversity of thought that occurs between public and private sectors within a common defence background. And that's for the benefit of mentees and mentors. The programme is targeted at middle management. There are lots of fantastic mentoring schemes out there that focus on women who are knocking at the door of the executive or board level. We feel that it's equally important to invest in the middle layer. Being part of a programme like this is a visible investment in women's futures at a stage in their careers when retention is key. So why is mentoring important? Because mentoring helps to change culture. People change culture, new ideas changes culture, confidence changes culture. All of these culture changes can arise in a mentoring relationship. And if you read the recent Defence Select Committee review of women in the armed forces, culture in some parts of the armed forces definitely needs to change. But enough from me. I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Cath Bishop, who will be telling you a little bit more. I'm also delighted that we have an existing mentee, Laura, and a mentor, Dave, who will be taking part in the session. Please do ask questions of them and Cath in the Q&A tab on the side. Cath is happy to take questions throughout the session. Cath, over to you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Angela. Great to be here with you all. And thanks for setting up this session, setting the context of inclusive leadership and the culture change that comes through this brilliant tool of mentoring. And the great thing about mentoring is it works at both the micro level. It changes our own experiences within organizations. It helps us to plot the future possibilities, but it also works at that organizational level, which is what makes it so powerful. So Angela's going to stay helping me with feeding in any thoughts and questions you have along the way. And our panelists will be with us to tell you from the front line of what mentoring has felt like within the defence sector over the last year or so. But first I want to set some context, both to deepen our understanding of this topic and to use this time to really explore what we understand from mentoring and what we can get from it. And also to tell you a bit about how we work within this really unique high impact mentoring programme. So my name is Cath Bishop. I used to work in government in the Foreign Office, so very much aware of the defence sector in practice. Professionally, I had a career in sport before that and now work with Moving Ahead. And Moving Ahead are a social impact organisation. If we can keep moving on the slides. And our role is to really support organisations to improve the inclusive environments that are there, to help people to thrive in organisations, to help us to harness the cognitive diversity that is so important to good leadership, good performance, resilience, and really making it these workplaces where we can thrive. We do a huge amount of work, and mentoring is really the key tool because it is so powerful in creating the change that we want. Lovely. So I actually have a question before we go any further. I just want to ask those of you who are watching what you understand the benefits of mentoring are. what do you see as being the kind of key things that a mentor or a mentee would get from being part of one of these programs? What does the word mentoring mean to you at the moment? What words or phrases come to mind? I'd love to just tap into your experience of this topic, your connection with this topic. So please just in that chat, in the Q&A, just add in your thoughts, your words, your phrases, and what you see as being the key benefits that you maybe have personally taken from being involved in mentoring, or that you have read about or are interested in finding out a bit more. So I'd really love to sort of get a feel for your connection with this topic before we kind of dive in any further. And Angela's gonna kind of summarize those and leap back in a moment to share some of those. What does mentoring mean to you? What might the possible impacts be that you're aware of? Please add those in so we can get that sense of your connection with this topic. That's something we believe so passionately in and are so keen to get more organisations involved, and are so excited to be involved in this first programme, which I was delighted to be the facilitator through over the last 12 months. So Angela, tell me, have we got any thoughts and phrases or connections coming in?
So we've got inspiring and share knowledge. I'm waiting for more. We may have to come back to this, Cath. But
Yeah, that's right. We'll keep them coming in. You know, mentoring is a very active process. It's not a theoretical process. It's very much something that requires us to have some different conversations, to connect with people in a different way. And that's why I'm asking you this question. This isn't a theoretical session in a way. It's talking about a topic that's a very real topic. All of our organizations exist through conversations, and it's how we change them one conversation at a time, which is very much the principle we work on at Moving Ahead. Great, just leap back on if there's some more thoughts. I love that sense of, a lot of inspiration, which we'll hear from our mentoring pair later, comes from the experience of being with others. To carry on with telling you a little bit about the program then, the kind of key purpose that we set it up, or actually, just jumping ahead of you, for those of you who haven't yet added in or perhaps in the process of typing in, these are just some of the impacts that we see in practice, that we know about in research as well, that come from mentoring. Culture change is the big one. That's one of the ones that Angela mentioned, and it's so important for all of us to be seeing the shaping culture in the way we want it to go. Culture exists just from the collective combination of how we work, but we want to shape it in a way that helps us to work better, that helps us to belong to our workplaces, that helps us to feel valued. And I think for me, that second line is so powerful, having that opportunity to think, to reflect, and be in a different headspace than we are when we're just knocking off tasks on our to-do list and churning through emails. It enables us to have a quality conversation that gives us that space to reflect, to think a bit more deeper about ourselves, about how we are part of teams, how we lead, and how we want our careers to progress. That then delivers these meaningful connections, not a transactional relationship. A mentoring partnership is as far apart from that as you can get. It's much more of a transformational experience that then accelerates culture change, and it makes people feel valued. We know that's so important for us to be at our best, to thrive, to be able to share our ideas, develop, grow. We need to feel valued. That's what we want from our organizations. We need to feel that we belong. Very much a topic in the world of diversity and inclusion, making sure we feel we can be part of a community, there's space for us where we can thrive. So these are some of our impacts. Do shout out, Angela, if we've had any more coming in from those listening.
Yes,
great.
So we've had, hoping you can hear me, stimulation, a different view of the organisation, helping you to change perspective, learning how to overcome barriers from others' experience, reciprocal commitment, guidance, new perspectives, one-on-one support, public engagement from a senior level. Where are we? I've heard that mentoring has a lifespan. Here we are, good question. How do you work out how long that is and when it's time to move to a new mentor?
Nice question.
That's what we've got at the minute. That's great.
That's lovely. And I mean, even from all of those, that I connect with all of those statements. That's very much what we've seen from this program over the last year and the broader work we do at Moving Ahead. And that just shows the breadth of what the impact is. It shows us the breadth, the depth of the experience you have through mentoring. It shows us that it's a very complex process. It's not just operating at one level, it's operating in that personal sense in lots of different ways, and it's operating organization in lots of different ways. It's a dynamic process. Again, you get that feeling from all of those different views that were shared there. Thanks so much for that, because actually you offer what I can't on my own provide, which is a lot of different voices. And that's what mentoring, that's what changing organizational cultures to enable us all to feel part of them is about. It's about hearing different voices, or to use, or some of the language that you use there about that breadth of perspective, which is so powerful to then put into our experience of making decisions in the workplace, being part of teams, creating strategy, deciding on the best way forward, managing adversity. All of those things, the skills we get can be really ploughed into improving all of those different natural work processes. So the program was set up, the whole purpose of it was to get that sharing to happen within the defence sector at a level that it hadn't happened before. So if we can move on to that one, please, Courtney. The purpose of it was to really bring the talent that we have in that critical middle layer, which we know we need to invest in. That's where stuff gets implemented. That's where development happens. That can also be where we lose talent. So it's a critical area to support. And it is in that cross-sharing of knowledge and information, creating really powerful networks that last beyond the mentoring partnership. And I'm going to come back to that question because it's a sort of interesting question that, how long does a mentoring partnership last? Well, there's no fixed answer, and only the people in that partnership can actually together decide. And some people stay for a long time. Some people think will think, okay, this one's worked, but I need something different and I want to get a different perspective. So there isn't a clear-cut answer, but actually just asking that once you have developed a meaningful mentoring relationship will enable you to experiment and to explore. And of course, you can always take a break and then come back to your mentor, having tried something else or having literally had a break to focus on something else at work or a different way of developing a different aspect of learning and development, and then actually come back a year later and say, right, this is where we were and these are now the challenges and how can I help you this time? In terms of the program itself, just moving on, it's very much runs through this 9-month chronology, if you like, starts in September. So we're literally about to kick off our second year of this program. And it's very much something that we have a really sophisticated process to get the matching to work, to make sure that, of course, we're not trying to match you with somebody who's like you, we're trying to match you with somebody who is going to stretch your perspective, but bring you the support, the challenge that you need. We are all the time providing in the background the sort of materials, the toolkit, a mentoring companion to help develop the relationships, to help you manage all of the different kind of ups and downs that are part of the journey, to make sure you really optimize everything you can get from it. So it's a learning process for all of us involved. The research is really clear that people with mentors perform better, advance in their careers faster, and they experience more work-life satisfaction. I'm taking that from a Harvard Business Review article that was summarizing some of the benefits of mentoring. It is seen as absolutely critical to the progression of diverse talent. Whatever you're reading around diversity and inclusion, there is nearly always a reference to mentoring as one of the few proven tools that actually helps us to make the shifts we want to make. So if we think about the benefits for mentees and the benefits for mentors, well, first of all, let me get rid of any old-fashioned notions that, this is about some wise old mentor just kind of telling the youngsters how it is. It's not like that in practice at all. And we'll kind of hear from our mentoring partnership later, from our mentoring pair, that this is very much a partnership. There are benefits that both parties gain equally, and we see that time and time again. It is that fresh perspective that each side get. Now, in particular, we see that benefits for mentees include that opportunity to get confidence and to have a space to consider their career progression, to think about anywhere where they might have got stuck, to think about any challenges they have, and to be able to talk those through in a really safe space. It's, also a really important part of developing networks, exposing us to people perhaps at a point in our careers where we might not naturally have that exposure to a senior view or a view from a different part of the sector, but then again broadens ourselves to see that there are probably a lot more possibilities in terms of career progression. It's really not very linear, and that's increasingly the case these days. So a lot of benefits for mentees. If we look at then the benefits for the mentors, we see, again, similar things really. It's again an expansion of your network in a different sense. Often we hear from the mentors that sense of, seeing the organisation through a different lens. Sometimes when we get to a certain seniority, we're further away from the front line, or we're further away from certain different aspects of the organisation. We can lose touch with what the experience is now for people joining, because it's shifted perhaps from when we joined. And it is so important to be really understanding the multiple perspectives within an organisation that we just can't get through our own lens. Again, it's part of enriching the network, and in themselves, again, the mentors will be thinking about how they're growing as leaders, how they're developing those critical leadership skills that will help them outside of the mentoring partnership, and how they're connecting and leading the teams that they're working with. We find that, of course, there are these then top-level benefits for the organisation, and that's the big picture of what we get from this. We're essentially investing and valuing our staff with meaningful development. And I say that kind of deliberately because there are quite a lot of courses and things we can go on that are all quite nice, but don't actually change anything for ourselves or our organisation, whereas this is something that brings that transformation with it. Gives us that opportunity to really support an aspect for us in this context, women in the defence sector, to give them that space to develop their voice, to get a sense of who they are, and connects us in a different way across the organisation. Again, I think the old-fashioned world of hierarchy, we saw us putting up all sorts of barriers between people in organisations, which we now realise are so unhelpful to performance within the organisation. And so, part of mentoring is almost taking out some of those unhelpful silos, some of those barriers, to reconnect ourselves as an organisation, enable us to move forward. In other words, these 3 points here, they're all about culture shaping towards a more inclusive environment. We've had such an amazing program, and personally it's been a real honor to facilitate it, and it's been online, but I have to say it's been a kind of huge experience to be part of. We've had such energy from everyone involved, such commitment and such enthusiasm, keenness to learn and explore. So it's been a real delight. We've had brilliant feedback from the cohort this year, which has helped us to learn what's working, and also to see all the areas that we might need to improve. We're always looking to see how we can continue to build things further. Some of the quotes that we had from those involved on the next slide give you a feel from, in their own voices, the sorts of things that have helped people to, have that experience that shifts the way they feel about themselves and the way they feel about their work life. I think it's always so powerful to hear how sometimes it's not what people go into a mentoring partnership expecting. There is very often this sense that it's all about career progression and when am I going to get my next promotion, and this might speed that process up. Well, that may or may not be a byproduct, and through the conversation you may or may not think that that's the most important thing, because there's so much more that goes around that. It's that framework within which you are learning about who you are personally, professionally, and then finding actually what might be the right path, which isn't always the most obvious path in our careers. But again, we see so much more flexibility these days in how we shift around within our organisations, but also within the sector. And that's, I think, the really exciting thing, just to have that sense here of more broadly what's going on within the defence sector. Excitingly, we've got a lot of programme growth for our second programme starting shortly. So we've gone from, I can't remember now, less than 100 pairings up to 168 mentoring pairs. So that's going to give me quite a lot to keep me on my toes, facilitating all of that and all the energy that comes with that. And we've got some great new organisations that have come on board this year. That includes Microsoft and Dell and Babcock International, alongside all the brilliant organisations supporting us, continuing with pairs from last year. So there's a real momentum here, and the word cloud, I think, gives you a bit of a sense of what people are taking from this. That sense, it is an experience. I think we're all starting to realise that that's what work is really about. It's how can we enhance each day, not waiting for some outcome that might come in the future, and we might get to a certain position, or we might get to a certain salary, whatever it might be. Do you know what? It's about what happens along the way, how we can maximise our own personal, professional growth, in order to then explore what's possible. Right, that's enough for me. So we now have the opportunity to hear from the front line, from a wonderful mentoring pair who've been brilliant to chat to through the period. Angela, I don't know if we've got any questions that have come in.
We do actually.
Great.
There's some good ones here. How do I work out who I should ask to be a mentor? How do I instigate the relationship? There's one about reverse mentoring. Is it as beneficial as mentoring? What about cross-gender mentoring? Do you think that's beneficial? And also, you use the term partnership. What are your tips to ensure from a mentor position that it's a partnership?
Wow, got lots. I'm not sure I remembered all of those. So I'll start with the end ones, and then you can check me. So I'll just let's sort of just chat about a couple of those. And then I think actually Dave and Laura might also kind of add in and weave in some of their perspectives on them. I do very deliberately use the word partnership because it's a two-way experience, and the benefits go in both directions. And to some extent, I therefore think that reverse mentoring has become more a natural part of what's happening within a mentoring partnership anyway. So, it's great to set it up as a specific challenge, if you like, that we really want to learn from juniors or those who've joined more recently. What I actually find is that mentoring per se is becoming that partnership. So we're moving away from that world of one person having the answers, advising a younger junior person, to actually almost, reverse mentoring is included within the mentoring partnership. I think in terms of finding the right partners, that's something that our team at Moving Ahead are really happy to have a conversation about in more detail. And Abby Hildrew will give you her details at the end. So please get in touch if you want to discuss that a bit more fully than I can here. In a way, it's somebody who's really open to sharing, who's interested, who wants to give back. And we'll perhaps ask Dave in a moment what motivates him to be a mentor. What makes a good mentor. Of course, it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. So I think it's, where they want some of those benefits that we talked about, where we want people who are interested in developing their own leadership skills, that empathy, the communication, that understanding of the organisation, where they want to be gaining an extra perspective, if you like. They're interested in multiple perspectives within the organisation, and they want their networks to become more diverse. Those are the sorts of motivations we see. Those are the sorts of benefits we talked about on that slide. So I think that's, one of the key things to think about. But have a conversation. When some people haven't come across it before, then, they need time to research it. There's lots of information now about mentoring. So again, have a look at Harvard Business Review, have a look at the Moving Ahead website, where there's lots of videos, lots of information about mentoring. And then I think people will naturally find their connection with it in a way that makes sense. I think whether cross-gender, cross-sector, the whole philosophy, the whole purpose of mentoring is that you are connecting across where there may have been barriers, where there may be unnecessary categories, silos. So yes, you can absolutely have it in any format. And I think Moving Ahead really started off very much primarily looking at supporting women, which is such an important priority for so many organisations. But we now are called Moving Ahead because organisations have lots of different needs for diversity. So yeah, please don't see this as restrictive in any way. Culture isn't restrictive within our organisations, and we want that to be developed in across the piece, cross-functionally, intersectionally. Definitely. Right, Angela, what questions did I miss out?
You've covered them all.
Phew. Great, keep them coming. Wonderful questions that are really thoughtful. So I'm really, really happy to have those, and we're happy to continue the conversation afterwards. Moving ahead as well. But I'm going to get some fresh voice. They've experienced mentoring over the past year on this wonderful Women in Defence programme. So, Dave, Laura, welcome to you both.
Hello.
Great to see you. Great. Thanks so much for joining. You've been listening to the conversations, to the questions, and you've been listening to, obviously the setup and the insights that I shared. So please pick up on any of those. But I'm just going to start with a real kind of basic opener to both of you about, what for you have been the key benefits. And Laura, I'm going to come to you first.
So I set Dave 2 challenges, which was that I lacked confidence and that I didn't have a plan. And I think that we've smashed both of those, really. My confidence has massively increased, and I've definitely got a plan going forwards. And yeah, I mean, I loved it. I hate public speaking, which, I would never have done this. That's a testament to the mentoring partnership that me and Dave have had. Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Yeah, brilliant. What a great answer. And was that different from what you expected going in? So, you had your challenges perhaps already clear in your mind, or perhaps that also was something you still clarifying. Looking back on it, what did you expect, and how was it? Was it what you expected? Was it different?
I don't think I knew what to expect. But I mean, it was a massive challenge for me to put my name forward. So that was, a big tick in the box for me. I said to Abby, that was a massive challenge for me, and I succumbed. I think me and Dave were really different. That's what I kind of started with. Our first session was all around Myers-Briggs and insights and trying to get to know each other through our personalities. And it just amazed me how different we were and how different our backgrounds were, and actually there was no barriers. We broke those barriers straight away. I thought because of lockdown we might struggle with not meeting face to face, but we had a schedule we stuck to. We met every month via Teams, and there was no difference. It felt it just felt natural, it felt normal, and yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Dave, I'm actually going to take you back to one of the questions from the audience there about what makes a good mentor. How would organisations find mentors? What's your view on that, with quite a lot of experience of mentoring yourself now?
Yeah, so what makes a good mentor? I think that is a very good question. For me, I think the number one thing would be the ability to listen, because many people, when they go into these sort of one-to-one sort of relationships, they like to, I think you said before, they like to download their experience on to the other person and sort of spend more time talking than listening. So I think one of the key skills is really not doing that. Is trying to listen, and as Laura said, trying to listen to what the other person wants, and then to adapt the program to that particular need. So the first few sessions that we had was all about that, getting to know the other person, and yes, we are polar opposites almost in that kind of personality sense. And I did think, oh wow, how's that going to work? But it worked absolutely fine. So in one sense, being those polar opposites was almost a strength, because I suppose we just bounced off each other in that sense. So what would I say was the best thing? The ability to listen, the ability to almost own up to the fact you don't know everything. So as I think you just said, the sort of wise person who can depart knowledge, and then acceptance that you don't know everything, and then the ability to go in and find out. So after each of our sessions, I gave Laura a task to do, but I also had many tasks myself to do, to go away and find out the real answers to some of the questions that was raised that perhaps I didn't know as much about. So it's as much about learning for me as it is for the mentee, if you like.
Yeah, nice, exactly. So that really kind of sums up that sort of partnership piece. So, you talked there about obviously the learning that you took away from that. What else did you take away from this experience of mentoring?
So for this experience personally, it wasn't about sort of climbing the ladder or anything like that. It was about that sort of, I think you said, about transferable skills and sharing knowledge but it was also making connections within my own organisation. And there's a good example of that just last week. I had cause to be in touch with somebody who was also on the programme as a mentee, in fact. And we exchanged information that we needed to exchange. And at the end, I just sort of said, well, how was this programme for you? And sort of half an hour later, we'd sort of finished talking about that. And now we've agreed to meet up again in about 4 weeks' time just to continue the discussion, because we found that we'd had so much to, talk about this particular programme, but also how it applied to our day job, and possibly how we can make things better in the day job by just continuing the discussion that perhaps we'd already started through the programme. So it's not just the mentee you get. The programme itself links you up with others, and then there's the possibility to take that relationship forward back at a base as well.
Great, yeah, brilliant real life example of the network in practice happening and actually leading to rich discussions that are so important and yet somehow might not have got scheduled to be discussed otherwise, because something else is on the agenda. But these are the things that are sometimes the bigger kind of, that shift the dial in terms of changing things for the better rather than just continuing to do things how they've already been done. Laura, what would you say were the kind of key tools that helped you within the sessions? We cover some of that within the kind of intro session, the midway session, that where we're kind of trying to talk about the skills that are helpful, and of course there's online stuff to support and the mentoring toolkit. What would you say were the tools that you brought and that you developed that helped you to get the most out of this partnership?
So the one key thing is obviously, I've mentioned my confidence. So David set me a challenge. He basically sent me 7 questions around kind of what are you good at, what are you bad at, 5 top achieving moments. And I didn't know how to answer them. If I'm totally honest, I didn't have a clue. I was very much kind of single line view. I'm not very good at anything. So I went out to my peers, my colleagues, my family, and asked them the questions and asked them to feed back to me. And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me. That was actually, I am good at things. I can do this. I work in a very male dominated environment, but my voice needs to be heard. And that was like the breaker. I also said to him that I'm very solutionized. I'm very, I always come up with an answer. So we went through techniques like the 6 thinking hats, to stand back, reflect, to really think about things before you answer. And I've used that in my day-to-day work now. I really do try and stand back and not answer and not try and solutionize things, which is really useful. And then finally, we went through CV and interview techniques, because at the end of our mentoring journey, I had a decision to make around my employment. So I basically said to David, I've got an opportunity to get a promotion. Can we work on my CV and interview techniques? And that really helped as well. It gave me, I've worked for the company for 15 years. I've never really had an interview, which is really strange. So it's something that I really wanted to work on. And Dave picked that up and was really good and kind of taught me through it.
Lovely, good. So if you have any other questions out there that you want to put to our panelists, then please feed those in to Angela. But I'd like to build out a bit more, Laura, on that sense of what difference it's made to your workplace, because I love that you've already given actually helped you with an interview, pretty important thing to prepare for. It also helped you to kind of not leap to solutions. Those are kind of 2 kind of really important benefits in terms of shifting how you go about doing your job. Can you talk a little bit more about perhaps the context in which you've done that, thought differently, or not jumped to a solution, or any other things where you do something different now in your job as a result of some of the kind of discussions and learnings?
So I think the first thing is that obviously I speak my mind now a bit more. That's come from the confidence. It's quite difficult to kind of talk whilst you're on Teams. I don't know if everyone's the same, but we're still very much a Teams-based organisation at the moment. We're not talking face-to-face. So again, getting your opinion over is quite difficult. Standing back and reflecting, I would be posed a question. I'm a business improvement manager, so I'm very much solution mode quite a lot of the time. We're implementing a new bid at the moment. It requires a lot of kind of thought, a lot of people involvement. and a lot of questions are being asked. And it was just taking that time, rather than I would sit on a call and I would give an answer. I've been kind of saying, can I just take that away, reflect on it for a couple of hours, and I'll come back to you with an answer at the end of the day. And that means that rather than coming up with an answer straight away that might not be quite suitable, I'm really sitting down, talking to other people about it, taking it away, and coming up with a better solution at the end of it.
Great. Yeah. Better solutions, better decision making. Who doesn't want that in their organizations? Dave, what are the techniques that you kind of think of as, what's in your toolkit, I suppose? What are the things that you use to kind of create this, and you've got a lot of experience in mentoring before this year as well. What are the key things that you see as helpful?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we did was to try to understand the other person. So using those sort of tools like Aspire and Myers-Briggs are definitely, I personally find, a very good starting point, just to understand more about the person, and it gives a kind of objective way for someone to start to describe themselves. And of course, there's lots of online resources there, and you can find out, the typical strengths and the typical areas for development for those sort of personality types. So you can use those as sort of discussion starting points. So not all will apply, but then you can start to use those rather than asking the blunt question of, so what aren't you very good at? You can sort of say, well, your personality type tends not to like to, and does that apply to you? And you can start that discussion, and it's a whole lot. It's not as threatening as the blunt question of what do you want to improve in. So there's that sort of technique. But the other one, as I sort of said, you need to listen to the other person and then research what sort of techniques apply. So with the sort of 7 questions that we heard, now I had never seen those before, so I was posed that question: how can I build my confidence? And I thought, you know what, I simply don't know. So I had to go and research it, and it's kind of, I suppose, experience comes in and knowing where to go and look in and what sort of things would work and what things perhaps wouldn't work. Another one that we haven't mentioned yet, which I really surprised me, I tell you, was I asked Laura to describe herself in like 30 words, and I was expecting that sort of elevator pitch to come out, but instead she took it absolutely what I said, and she basically wrote down 30 words that describe herself. And at first I was really taken back by that. I'm thinking, what's all that about there? But when I thought about it, I thought, that's probably a lot harder than what I actually asked her to do. And she also put it into a word cloud by hand. I thought, and made certain words bigger. And I thought, this is so good. I'm going to use this again. So there is that sort of just learning from others, sort of, and also not, as we said, not jumping to conclusions saying, oh, that wasn't right. It's sort of, okay, so why did you do it that way? And then when I sort of dug into it, I thought, oh, wow, that's really quite impressive. I'm not sure I could do that. But then there's that sort of learning from others bits. And I thought, you know what, I haven't thought of my own 30 words recently. Perhaps I should go and have a look at my own ones. Shouldn't ask someone to do something you aren't prepared to do yourself. So that forced me to go and do something, which I think you do every 5 years or so anyway, because you change. And it forced me to do that as well. So I've benefited from it. So yes, there's a whole range of tools, and I think the experience of the mentor comes in is knowing where to go to look, but not necessarily having them all in a toolbox and just dip them out. There's adding new tools in. I've certainly added some new tools in over the last year, I tell you.
Oh, that's such a lovely story. I want to go and do that as well now. Yeah. I think everybody watching will be going to do that later. Laura, you should trademark that or something.
Trademark that, definitely.
The 30-word tool. We've invented it here. We'll all spread the word. I think that's such a lovely thing, both in actually doing it, but what it's making me think of is just that the way that we say 30 words, you think, how can anyone take that differently? But that happens all the time in our organizations. We think we've been really clear about what we've asked or what we want, and other people can be wonderfully imaginative and creative. And we can almost think, no, how can they misunderstand me? But actually what they've done is enrich and broaden. And that's where we're in a world of really appreciating cognitive diversity rather than the cloning world that some of us have experienced in organizations from time to time. Any questions for the panelists?
So there's a couple of really lovely comments. One is, this is really insightful. Thank you for sharing your experiences so honestly. And then great points, learning from each other. There is a question here, which is, for the Moving Ahead scheme, what career stage do you look for mentees and mentors to be? And I don't know, Cath, if I can just quickly add something to that.
Please do.
So if I'm just going to talk about the armed forces, and to say that on the last cohort, we had mentors who were warrant officers, and we had mentees who were soldiers. So it is not an officer sport, is the one point I will make. But I don't know whether or not you want to add to that. And could I ask a question as well of both Laura and Dave? So the sort of the proposition for the scheme is that there is added value by having someone from the public sector mentor someone from the private sector and vice versa. Do you think that proposition holds water?
Do you want to go, Dave?
Yeah, because I say absolutely. We've discussed this ourselves within the mentoring pair. Is that when I came into this, I had certain sort of ideas and views about what life was like in industry, and certain of them I would say I found quite scary, and I wondered how people actually dealt with them. But when I spoke to Laura, she almost shrugged them off and said, "Well, that's just day-to-day work. What's so scary about those?" And so absolutely having that different perspective to it, but also things like recruitment, because the way we recruit in the civil service is very different to the way that's done in the private sector. And so just understanding that piece was an eye opener for me as well, about what's looked for and how the actual process works. So I think it's all of that. It's just that having that background, I think has been really useful. So there is that sort of being a sort of polar opposites in personality, but also coming from different backgrounds, but also working in a different environment. I found really insightful from the year that we spent.
Laura, what's your perspective?
So because we worked in such different, I mean, obviously we both work in defence, but we work in such different sectors. I just found it really interesting to learn a different business ways of working, really. Like I say, I've worked where I am for 15 years. It's my sort of first real job. So yeah, it was nice to get that different perspective from other people, rather than people with inside my business. I've been mentored by people with inside my business before, but I felt like the sort of 9 months I learned a lot more, because I saw how other businesses were doing stuff, how they process map, how they interact with each other. So yeah, no, it was really good.
Cath, we've got one more as well, which is a good one. If I would like to start thinking about becoming a mentor, where is the best place to start as a total newbie?
Now, there's a very topical question, because our mentoring relationship ended whenever it was last month or something. But it just didn't feel like that was quite right. So because of this event, we got back in touch with each other. And what Laura said was she would very much like to be a mentor on this program, but felt that it was a little bit early. So we're going to meet up again with that kind of idea of now, how can we move Laura from being a mentee to a mentor? So we're doing part 2 sort of off our own bat. So how do you become one? Well, here is an ideal opportunity. You become a mentee first, see what it's like on the other side, and then move your way through. But it's also having a broad range of experience, so doing different jobs, different types of jobs, meeting lots of different people, and so yeah, also being a mentee yourself and a mentor.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, brilliant answer, Dave. And I
Thank
suppose the other thing is to be a curious person, to have curiosity is probably the number one skill I would add to that. And I certainly wouldn't be put off from thinking, oh, I'm not qualified for it. So, come and have a conversation with Abby, with any of us at Moving Ahead to find out a bit more. It's really that curiosity to connect, to learn, to share, to listen. Those are the things that are really important. And yeah, come and find out more. Don't be nervous. So sort of, yeah, I mean, we're running out of time after all those kind of amazing questions and things. Brilliant insights as always. Thank you so much, Laura and Dave. Quick one just to throw into both of you. If you had to say, what the biggest takeaway is for you from this year, what would you say, Laura?
I'm a lot more ambitious. So I've got ambitions to move forward in my career. And I've started signing up for more things. So I've just signed up to become a STEM ambassador. So moving forward, trying to help other people as well.
Brilliant. I cannot believe that you had any worries about public speaking when you have been so wonderfully eloquent today. Thank you for joining us. And Dave, your biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I think it's really just seeing Laura do these things that perhaps at the start of the time we had, she wouldn't have done. So just that one which just mentioned there about standing up and talking in front of a crowd. Is a real plus, but what hasn't really come out so much is some like the 30-word example. For example, what Laura also told me was she then used that and flashed it up, and we also did one for her work, and she then flashed that up in front of her team, and that then sparked off discussion because of the way she put different words in different sizes. It then creates that discussion. Why have you put that word so big and that one so small, sort of thing. So just hearing about how she was using what she has learned and bringing it back into the workplace, that was a real plus for me, because I never at the start I never dreamed that would happen. Sort of it's taken it to that level. That's good.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's brilliant. And that's how we get this cultural shift that comes from mentoring, because it's not isolated pairs operating, having isolated conversations. Ourselves, we're a big community on this program, and an even bigger one in this second year in the bigger cohorts, but then all of those mentoring conversations are continued within teams, within departments, within companies, across all of the different sort of sectors, and shared, beyond that as well with personal connections. So, it really has that wonderful ripple effect. That is the real power of mentoring. Thank you so much, Laura and Dave, for joining us today, and as always, speaking from the heart, and really kind of helping us to understand the potential and exciting possibilities, from actually real life doing it. Thank you so much. You've been such a brilliant pair. I'm looking forward to meeting more inspirational pairs in the program, and having more mentees, mentors come back, of course, as well. Thanks very much. Great. Courtney, we just got a couple of slides to close up. Our time is kind of nearly through now. As part of being at this conference, you have access to some broader events that Women Ahead holds. We have a summit series to, again, bring you different voices, bring you different perspectives, increase the diversity of your thinking. And so you have access just during the time of this conference only to dip into some of those, and again, just inspire yourself and think whether you'd be interested in connecting beyond that with some of these broader events as well. In terms of the mentoring program that we've discussed, the next steps for that are to start thinking about, is this right for you? If you've got any further questions coming out of this that we haven't answered, or you want to chat through more about how do I find mentors, mentees, we've got so much experience in this, and so Abby's details are on the slide. Please drop her a line and she will be able to help you with whatever questions you have. Really to set your any doubts or anything, put them to rest and just explore what's possible here. Sign-ups for, now the cohort that will start next September will begin in January, but actually make sure you start the conversations now within your organisation about getting people excited at the potential here, thinking about how this can fit into other initiatives and other work you're doing, and find out what's possible. So do get in touch. We would absolutely love to have more of you joining and continuing the incredible momentum from this program. Thanks so much for joining today. Thank you to Dave and Laura. Thanks to Angela, who is such a brilliant ambassador, advocate, founder of the Women in Defence mentoring program. So looking forward to working again with them next year. And it's been a real pleasure to dip into it and share with you both the detail of our program, but the bigger picture of what mentoring can do for us and for our organisations. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.